What's going on, Colts Nation? I appreciate you joining me for another video where in this one I want to go over the division, kind of how we're looking going into the bye week. I want to look at kind of what each of the teams that are beneath us are doing. Obviously, we're not going to worry about the Titans because they're 1-8. Who cares? But with the Texans getting a pretty massive comeback win on the Jaguars, that helps open up our lead, but we do have 2 games against the Texans, 2 games against the Jaguars. So with that, those are very important games. So looking through each team's schedule, and I also want to look at conference as we get to the end of this, and we'll look at kind of what we're worried about here. And what I'm looking at and kind of what I'm thinking. But as we get into this, right now we sit at 8-2, obviously, through 10 weeks. And looks like everybody else in the division has had their bye week already. Jags are 5-4. So we have that 2-game lead, but we've already had our bye week. So if the Jags end up winning their next game, get to 6-4, then we'll have that 2-game lead. If the Texans win their next game, we'll have a 3-game lead on the Jaguars coming out of the bye week. So as we look forward, that's what we're looking at, right? And now, points for, of course, the Colts have scored the most points in the league. 321 for us, 205 for the Jaguars, 204 for the Texans. Texans offense has been incredibly inconsistent. They've had some really bad weeks, but they've also had other weeks, like, against the Jaguars. I think they put up 36 points against the Ravens, when the Ravens had like the 7 highest paid players on their roster out, including some guys on their defense. They put up 44 points. So they've had a couple weeks where they put up a bunch of points, but for the most part, they've been really consistent. The Jags have only scored 1 more point than them, so they've also been really inconsistent offensively, which is very interesting. But the Texans have only given up 150 points, which is pretty incredible. They have a very real defense that we're going to have to worry about. So we get into this again, 2.5-game lead as we go into the bye week, and what we're looking at for our schedule the rest of the way. And we'll dive deeper into this as the week goes on. I want to look back at what we've done, what we have going forward. I want to look back at the prediction video, the last prediction video that we put out before the season. We'll go over that. Figure that's a fun little video to have throughout this bye week. But what we have, it's difficult, man. I'm not gonna sit here and BS you guys. We have a difficult schedule. Like, first part of our schedule, we get the Dolphins, the Titans twice. We get the Raiders, the Cardinals, who have been a bit dysfunctional. But, and then, of course, the Falcons. But this is where it starts to get much more difficult. You have the Chiefs. And Chiefs with Rashee Rice are a much different football team. Right now, they can't really run the ball, and we'll talk more about that next week when we start looking into the Chiefs and that matchup. But they have Patrick Mahomes. You got to worry about him. That offensive line is better than it has been in the last few years. So going against the Chiefs is not going to be an easy feat. And we're in Kansas City. Now, Colts against the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, I believe we are the only team Patrick Mahomes has not beaten in his career. Even in 2022, we got a cheap penalty that helped us keep a drive alive at the end of the game, and we ended up going and winning that game. But nonetheless, Patrick Mahomes has not beat the Colts in his career. Jacoby Brissett in 2018 went into Kansas City, and we came out with a dub against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. So, generally I feel pretty good about the Chiefs because we have a really good team, and because of the history of it's just like us going into Pittsburgh, us going into Jacksonville. Like, it just doesn't – sometimes it just doesn't matter. And this year, I feel good about us against the Chiefs. Chiefs have the Broncos this upcoming week, and that's going to be interesting, which, by the way, I did talk to my guy Derek over there at the Lions Syndicate. He is the leader of the Syndicate and the owner of this channel. He just, allows me to make content here. Shout out, Derek. And I did talk to him about whether or not I could stream the Jaguars-Chargers game on Sunday during the bye week. He said that was completely fine. He said he does stuff like that during bye weeks. He said that Bronco Syndicate, Gage over at Bronco Syndicate, he's done the same thing. So we will be live this upcoming Sunday. We are not going to take a week off. We will stream the Jaguars-Chargers game, which is going to have massive implications. Right, massive implications. Chargers are a very good team. Sitting here looking, they are 7-3 right now, breathing down the Broncos' neck, and they have the tiebreaker over the Broncos right now because they beat the Broncos earlier in the season. So, if the Chargers are able to win that game and the Chiefs end up beating the Broncos, then all of a sudden the Chargers become a threat that we're going to have to worry about. Now, we do have the tiebreaker over both the Broncos and the Chargers, so that's good news. But nonetheless, that could be a very important game, or the Jags could win. But if the Jags lose, even better for us in the division. If they fall to 5-5, then we come out of the bye week with a 3-game lead on either. Even if the Texans win this upcoming week, we come out of the bye week with a 3-game lead in the division, which would be huge, right? So as we go forward, that matters a lot. So let's actually look. As I mentioned, the Chargers are playing the Jaguars. We'll be live for that game at 1 o'clock this upcoming Sunday. And then the Texans, they play the Titans. So you got to assume with as great and truly, like, it's the Texans, and I don't want to give them credit, but their defense is phenomenal. And so you just got to assume they're going to beat down the Titans pretty bad, I would assume, to be completely honest. So I would expect the Texans to win that game. So we could come out of the bye week with a 3-game lead on both of those teams. And then all of a sudden the Texans are going to be second in the division because they would have the head-to-head against the Jaguars at the moment. And then with the 3-game lead, that's when we start to get into more division play. 2 weeks in a row, we have the Texans after the Chiefs. Right, so Texans very easily could come off of a beatdown of the Titans. And then we get the Texans. This one going to be in Indianapolis. And it's going to be the first game in Indianapolis in quite a while. We had a home game, but it was in Berlin. Colts haven't had a home game in a few weeks now. So when you're looking at it, and actually what was the last home game was the Titans in Week 8. And then we were at Pittsburgh, we were in Berlin, bye week, and then at Chiefs. So a month away from home. And then the Texans come to Indianapolis. And that's going to be, again, another tough game against a really good defense, right? Essentially, in my opinion, best offense against best defense in the NFL is what that game is going to be. And it's going to be an interesting contrast to see how that ends up working out. But that's going to be a difficult game. Then we get the Jaguars. That one in Jacksonville. And I tried to lie to myself about going into Pittsburgh and winning. And we did break one curse this year, right? Being able to win in week 1. We weren't able to win in Pittsburgh, and it's hard for me to see us winning in Jacksonville. It just is. It's a 1 o'clock game. It's in December, so really weather should be pretty good. In northern Florida, it might be a little cooler, but still should be pretty good in Jacksonville this time of year. And but nonetheless, going into Jacksonville, going into Jacksonville, of course, just scares Colts fans right now for obvious reasons. And then we go on the road again in Week 15. Into Seattle. Seattle seemingly better on the road than they are at home, but really good football team right now. Like if people don't say the Colts are the best team in the league, it's because they're saying the Seahawks are the best team in the league. I assume they're going to be number 1 on a lot of people's power rankings this upcoming week. A very good team. Offensive powerhouse right now. Their defense is doing really well under Mike McDonald, and they're doing good things. That's going to be a 4:25 game, and so we play. Again, that's Chiefs, Texans, Jaguars, so 2 division games, and then Seahawks going out west for that. And then Monday Night Football, Week 16 against the 49ers, a game that we should be able to win. For sure should be able to win that game. But, of course, once we get to Week 16, we'll see what happens. Do we have DeForest Buckner back by that point? Who knows? Shane Steichen's essentially saying, hopeful to be able to have him back. And So we'll see if that's able to happen. Let's see, Falcons, Chiefs. So the first eligible game DeForest Buckner is going to be able to be back is going to be the Seahawks. But just the way it sounds, I don't expect it to only be 4 weeks, especially when we're talking about a neck. So we'll see what happens. Maybe he is able to come back by the time we play Seahawks. But if we're able to have him against the Niners and be able to stop that run game with Kyle Juszczyk and George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey, that would be pretty huge. But 49ers, even with all the injuries, always a team that's typically competitive. I know the Rams just beat them down, but week to week, they're usually pretty competitive. And then to finish the year, we, of course, still have 2 division games left. This one is going to be Week 17 in Indianapolis. The Jaguars come to Indy. And then Week 18 is when the Texans, we go to Houston to play the Texans. And who knows, by that time, maybe that ends up being a pretty big game. As we go through here, like games that of course, against the Texans, as good as their defense is, I'm kind of worried about that, right? You got to worry about the Chiefs because they have Mahomes. Got to worry about going into Jacksonville, right? So this is definitely not going to be an easy end of the schedule for us whatsoever. But I do see an opportunity for us to be able to win. Like I wouldn't be surprised if the only game we lost was against the Seahawks. I wouldn't be surprised if we won every game. I wouldn't be surprised if we lost 3 of these games. So the back end, the last 7 of these games, going to be very interesting for the Colts, and it's going to be important to keep coming away with wins as we go through. And again, we'll talk about the conference here in just a few moments. But going through the Jaguars' schedules, they have the Chargers, which could be a difficult game. Who knows? They seem to be, 1 week they're great, 1 week they look like a different football team, so we'll see what happens. They just beat down the Steelers, so we'll see what happens with the Chargers-Jaguars this upcoming Sunday. That one going to be in Jacksonville, and then they are at the Cardinals, and that one could go either way. Jacoby in that offense, that could go either way. Tennessee, I just feel like everybody should be able to beat Tennessee. That feels like they'll have the number 1 pick once again, and especially because the Saints and the Jets won. The Jets have won a couple games recently, and the Saints won. So Titans wouldn't really expect anything other than for them to just keep losing. Then, of course, they have us. They have the Jets on their schedule, but then they play the Broncos later, and so they haven't had their Broncos game either. So they could easily, and then they have Titans again and us. So I could see them, maybe beating the Chargers. I'm kind of 50-50 on that. They should honestly be able to beat the Cardinals, the Titans, that's 2 wins, the Jets, 3 wins, and then the Titans again, 4 wins. So down the stretch, they could easily mess around and go, 4-4 to end this thing. Or what's that, week 11 to week 18? Yeah, what is that, 4-4? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they go 4-4 and ultimately end up with a 9-8 record. And then for the Texans, currently sitting at 5-4. Actually, what are they? No, they're 4-5. Sorry. After beating the Jaguars, they moved to 4-5, and with the rest of their schedule, for the final 8 games of their schedule, Tennessee, expect them to win that one, but then they play the Bills. That could be a difficult game for them. Thursday night game on a short week. Texans on a short week against the Bills. That's going to be a very interesting game with the way the Bills are. Man, honestly, with the way the Bills or the way Texans defense is, I could really see them winning that game, to be honest with you. But obviously that could go either way. Josh Allen's incredible. So is James Cook. So we'll see what happens there. Then they have us. They have the Chiefs on their schedule still. They have the Cardinals, the Raiders, and the Chargers. So they have some difficult games coming up as well. So in terms of the division, as we go along, all 3 teams have some difficult games. All the other teams do have some easier games, right? The Texans have the Cardinals and the Raiders left on their schedule, but they have and the Titans, but the Texans have the Bills, the Chiefs, the Chargers, and then us twice. So going to be very interesting to see how it goes. Again, we could very easily come out of the bye week with a 3-game lead on both the Texans and the Jaguars. So very important for us to continue to win. Even though we have a 3-game lead, you can't get comfortable. We have a tough end of the schedule, and we have to be able to continue to win games. We have to keep the tiebreakers in those situations. And those obviously count as AFC opponents in terms of conference record. Right now, we're 6-1 in the conference. Jaguars and Texans are both 3-2 in the conference. So important for us to keep winning, especially those division games are going to be incredibly important. Now, as we look ahead, you look at the conference. Why is it important to keep winning? Outside of the division, right? Even if you have a comfortable lead in the AFC South, and we feel good about our chances to win the AFC South. So making the playoffs, I mean, we're already at 8 wins. Feels like it should be an inevitability for us. Right now, we sit on top of the league, and we sit on top of the AFC at 8-2. Again, with a 6-1 conference record. The Broncos are at 8-2. They play the Chiefs. And the way the Broncos have been performing with Pat Surtain out, I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Chiefs end up winning this game, because that Broncos offense is incredibly inconsistent. And I think, honestly, I just think Steve Spagnuolo, he's going to be able to get after Bo Nix and make him be inaccurate, make him make some mistakes. Now, the Broncos could run the ball a lot, and they could end up winning that game. That game really could go either way. But honestly, I just kind of see the Chiefs winning, so that would drop the Broncos down to 8-3, and then they have their bye week. So we should be able to stay ahead of them. But what I'm worried about in terms of the AFC, when you talk about the conference, the Jaguars-Chargers game, again, is going to be huge because the Chargers are sitting at 7-3 right now. If they go to 8-3 and the Broncos drop to 8-3, Chargers move up with in the lead in that division, and then we have to worry about them. But also, the team I'm most worried about is actually the Patriots, which, of course, as soon as the Colts get good again, so do the Patriots. Drake May's playing really good football. Jonathan Taylor, dude, if Jonathan Taylor loses the MVP to a Patriots quarterback, I'm going to be sick, dude. But Drake May has been playing well with a cast of guys that aren't a whole bunch of big names, right? He has Stephon Diggs, but for the most part, there's a lot of really young guys on that team, and Drake May's balling out right now. Shout out to Mike Vrabel doing a good job as coach over there. But the Patriots are 8-2. You want to hear the Patriots schedule? Let's just go through the whole Patriots schedule. See how cupcake this schedule. Like, this is the AFC East as a whole has easy schedules, but dude, listen to this: the Raiders, the Dolphins, the Steelers. Now, of those first 3 games, they came out 1-2. Their 2 losses came in the first 3 weeks. They lost to the Raiders and they lost to the Steelers, but they beat the Dolphins. After that, Panthers, Bills, impressive win. At the time, the Bills were undefeated. And they went into Buffalo and won that game 23-20. Then the Saints, the Titans, the Browns, the Falcons, the Buccaneers, which, by the way, Patriots only beat the Falcons by 1 point, in case you're wondering. Falcons, again, week to week, you never know what you're going to get from them. They could get blown out 31-0 by the Panthers, or they could be competitive against better teams. And but the Patriots beat them. And then the Patriots coming off a big win in Tampa Bay in Week 10 against the Buccaneers 28-23. The rest of their schedule: the Jets, the Bengals, the Giants, and then they have a Week 14 bye. The Bills, the Ravens, the Jets, the Dolphins. So they play the Jets twice, which is a cheat code. That's not even fair. They also play the Giants, who just fired their coach. Now, Joe Burrow got his practice window open and I believe came off the IR. I think they went ahead and took him off the IR. I think he's essentially good to go. Came back from his rehab and sounds like he could be ready to go. And so hopefully the Bengals help us out a little bit. We're going to need that because I don't expect the Jets to be competitive or the Giants. So in the next couple weeks leading into the Patriots bye week, they could easily go 3-0. They could easily go 2-1. That at worst, they're going to go 2-1. I don't see them losing to either of the New York teams. Both those games are going to be at home for the Patriots. But then they go to Cincinnati, which seemingly, the way it sounds, is going to be Joe Burrow back in the lineup. I mean, they've been scoring a bunch of points with Joe Flacco. So with Joe Burrow back, you got to assume they're going to continue to be able to score. And then after their bye week, the Bills, that one going to be at home once again for the Patriots. And hopefully Josh Allen can get his get-back game. So we'll see, what ends up happening there. But they already beat the Bills once. Could happen again. The Ravens, who starting to get healthy, they're starting to look good. So hopefully, again, that one's going to be in Baltimore, and that's a hard place to play. So hopefully the Ravens can help us out. Hopefully the Bills can help us out. And hopefully the Bengals, right? Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. Hopefully those guys can help carry their teams to help us out and get the Patriots to lose a few games, because they finished their year with the Jets in New York, and then Miami in Week 18 has to go into Gillette Stadium. And those Miami boys aren't going to be able to handle that at the end of the year. They're just not. And so I expect them to be able to win that game. So, I mean, at worst, 4-3 down the stretch for the Patriots. So, at worst, the Colts can only go 4-3, and we cannot continue to lose conference games. Right now, the Patriots are 4-2 in the conference. If they did lose those 3 games, right, against the Bengals, the Bills, and the Ravens, if they did, they would have 5 losses in the conference. Right now, we have 1. So, essentially, as long as we also go 4-3 down the stretch, then no matter how you slice it up, we should be able to stay above the Patriots due to conference record. So that's what we're looking at as we go forward. We are now in the bye week, and we are now examining what it's going to look like going forward. So in the division, we feel pretty good about it. Could come out with a 3-game lead in the division on both the Jaguars and the Texans. It's kind of the expectation I'm having right now, is a 3-game lead on both the Jaguars and the Texans. And then we could come out, when you talk about the conference, Patriots could easily, because they haven't had their bye week yet, they would have the extra win. They could be number 1 team in the conference because they have 9 wins. So we're going to have to wait for their bye week or wait for them to lose, and which, again, not going to happen this week against the Jets, I don't think. So we'll see what happens in the division and the conference, but that's what we're looking at. And, of course, I would like to know what you guys think about all of this between conference and between the division. How do you think it stacks up with what we're talking about with the Colts schedule? Again, Texans twice, Jaguars twice, Chiefs, Seahawks, Niners. We have 7 games left. What do you think our record is in those games? And do you think we win the division? How much do we win it by? What's our final record? What do you think happens in the conference with the Patriots scheduled being the way it is? How do you think they end up this season? And do you think the Colts can end up as the number 1 team in the AFC coming out of the bye week up until the end of the season leading into the playoffs? You guys let me know your thoughts on all this down in the comment section. I would love to hear where you guys are at and kind of what everybody's thinking. Do you think we can get some things right through this bye week, right? Some of the mistakes we've made over the last couple weeks, I feel like we can get them corrected as we get into the bye week, self-evaluate, get some rest, a little bit of rest and rehab and relaxation for these guys, and then come back ready to go against Kansas City and ready to fight for the 1 seed through the end of the season. I think we'll be all right. And so ultimately, again, I guess I've let my thoughts be known. I think 5-2 down the stretch, very possible for us. Hard to see us winning Jacksonville, but I could easily see us being 13-4 this year, which is pretty incredible from where we were. And again, we will go over the season prediction video that I had, because 13-4, just saying, not very far off from what I was predicting anyways. So You guys let me know, again, your thoughts down in the comment section. Would love to hear from you guys and see what you guys are thinking. And, of course, if you enjoy the content, make sure to hit the like button. Make sure you guys subscribe with notifications on. I'm going to continue pumping out content even through the bye week. And, again, live on Sunday. Please come hang out, have a little watch party as we hate watch the Jaguars and hope that they lose against the Chargers on Sunday. Going to be right here on Colts Syndicate watching the Jags versus the Chargers at 1 o'clock. So come hang out this Sunday, a little football with the boys, and of course, as always, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and go Colts.